Hello, my name is Kevin Rhodes. Welcome back. My hope is to help leaders innovate by design. If you read any of the business literature or design literature or listen to talks on leadership, innovation, design, you cannot escape the word empathy. It's kind of having a moment these days. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fine work that Tom Kelly and Tim Brown have done over at IDEO in raising our level of awareness around the importance of empathy, what it's for, how to use it, and that sort of thing. But have you ever thought that maybe empathy actually might be the thing holding you back, even though you might be reaching for it and tapping into it? So let me give you two aspects of empathy that I think are worth considering, and we'll follow up with an ingredient that I would say is necessary in order to really take advantage of what empathy has to offer. So first, let's jump into these two ideas that actually come from the researchers over at Greater Good over at Berkeley. They've kind of given us this language for understanding empathy in two different ways. First, the cognitive empathy. And that's just simply our ability to recognize the emotions or the thought patterns that we can observe in somebody else. So you observe someone experiencing a pain or a joy, and you see that, recognize it, and catalog it. Cognitive empathy. It's probably, for the most part, our most general understanding of empathy, and often how we use it in design. Although I think it's kind of ballooned and grown into different definitions that actually I don't think are all that helpful. So for example, you've probably heard empathy applied to pretty much everything. If you want to solve a problem, apply empathy. If you want increase revenue, apply empathy. If you want to be a better leader, apply empathy. If you want to make the world a better place, apply empathy. The word it gets used so much that sometimes we lose track of actually what it means. And I think there are better ways there are better words that we can use to activate us. First bit is cognitive empathy, the ability to see, catalog, and understand someone else's emotions or thought patterns. The second type of empathy that Greater Good calls out is affective empathy. This is where scientists suggest that mirror neurons in our brain actually sense an emotion that we observe and echo that emotion back into our brain, allowing us to feel the same thing that someone else is feeling. So affective empathy allows really to internalize and have that same kind of emotional or visceral reaction that we're observing in someone else. So out of these two types of empathy, cognitive empathy might be holding you back in different ways than affective empathy might. So let me unpack that a little bit for you. Cognitive empathy, the act of quantifying that observation, often creates an emotional distance between you and the one you're observing. Almost has this backfiring effect on what we're trying to actually do. The Greater Good actually calls this the too cold to care effect. And that's really when we become so detached from our observation that we don't actually care enough to do anything about it. So cognitive empathy might be holding you back in that regard. And affective empathy holds people back in other ways, and often because the sensations are so great that it paralyzes those that have a great deal of affective empathy for something or for someone that they're observing. But here's the deal. Empathy isn't about imagining how you feel in someone else's shoes. It's actually imagining how they feel in their shoes. And that's the key to really unlock empathy, is understand what it's used for. Where does it fit in our process of moving forward? Empathy is a critical ingredient for gaining a new perspective, but it is not enough to move you forward to better design, better innovation, better leadership. So regardless of whether you're able to really capitalize on cognitive or affective empathy, neither one of them are going to push you forward unless you're able to take the next step, and that is to reach towards compassion. So this idea or this ability to act in someone else's best interest, to see what they're seeing, to have a firm understanding of their perspective, and then from from your position as a designer, innovator, leader, act in their best interest. Act in a way that supports that experience that you're able to observe. So empathy informs compassion, and then compassion activates empathy. So I think it's important to keep those ideas separate and understand when to reach for stronger empathy and when to really activate that through compassion. And I think in a lot of the conversation nowadays, we're conflating the two ideas between empathy and compassion, and they are distinct. And we need to be mindful about when to use a particular skill or action so that we know when we are lacking empathy, we're lacking that clarity, that visibility into understanding someone else. And then once we're able to see clearly into that world, then we're able to exercise it through compassion. I hope that's been helpful. Hey, again, my name is Kevin Rhodes. You can find me online anywhere, but look me up on Twitter at Kevin Rhodes, and then you can find me on my home on the web at kevinrhodes.com. Hey, if you found this helpful, hit the subscribe button and share this with somebody. And I hope that you are able to use empathy and in new ways to gain clarity and decide from that new understanding how to move forward in the interests of those that you're trying to serve. Until next time, hey, thanks for swinging by.